99geek.ca book reading of Suburban Fantasy. This is Chapter 2, Trust. Previously on a Suburban Fantasy, uh, Rachel Lynn Smith is just an innocent teenage girl who is shy, has chronic shyness, and luckily she has a good group of friends who keep her involved and try to push her to be more social. Um, she's just a normal girl, really geeky, likes to play video games, loves anime, loves manga, but she's been having dreams, and in her dreams, she's seeing people she's never seen before, and they're giving her warnings, telling her not to go to a party that she hadn't planned to go to in Toronto, that's being hosted by the school president, the coolest girl in school, Tanya Dayton. Will she go? She doesn't want to go. She wasn't planning to go. I guess we'll find out. This is 99% Geek. And let's get started. Chapter 2, Trust. It was only a matter of time before they found her. She had hidden herself in the crow's nest in hopes they would fight each other and leave her alone. Unfortunately for Rachel, everything hidden is eventually found. Rachel just wished it wasn't him. The man came at her, a shotgun held menacingly in his hand. The first shot was dead on, and it really hurt. She wasn't completely helpless, though. She did have a rocket launcher. Firing a rocket at Andrew, Rachel had to reload quickly as he strafed easily aside. She tried to match his movements, but couldn't keep her reticle on him. The next second passed, and she was dead. 10 seconds till respawn. "Shit," Rachel said aloud without thinking. Mr. Martin, the computer science teacher at their school, stopped his lesson and threw her a raised eyebrow. "Is everything all right, Mrs. Smith?" Rachel nodded and pretended to take notes on HTML, but he just continued to stare. "I had a sudden cramp in my leg," she told him. "Like a Charlie horse?" Mr. Martin asked. Rachel wasn't quite sure what a Charlie horse was, but she nodded anyway, and he returned to the whiteboard. They had computer class first thing on Thursdays. Andrew and Bilal had snuck into the computer lab an hour early and installed a shooting game on the computers in the back. Now the 6 of them could play free-for-all matches to the death while Mr. Martin droned on. Rachel respawned and immediately made for the crow's nest again. It was the most defendable position, and was the only place on the map where you could get the best gun in the game. On the way, she grabbed some armor and a plasma rifle. She carefully advanced up a staircase only to find Bilal and Mike fighting to the death in the courtyard. Bilal tried to hide behind a pillar, but Mike strafed around it and fragged him. In the chat, the Johns. "Your powers are weak, old man." Something Mike wrote. Okay, sorry, the way I have this written is a little weird. "Your powers are weak, old man," Mike wrote in the chat, a reference to Star Wars. I think that's supposed to be bolded, but then my formatting keeps getting messed up. And because the formatting gets messed up, it makes it virtually unreadable. I should never have written it this way. And then Bilal said, "A hawk," in the chat. Rachel knew if she was going to win, she would have to play dirty. For instance, Mike's health was probably really low after his fight with Bilal. A couple more shots would probably have him. With that in mind, she squeezed the mouse and fragged him before he could even turn around. "Damn, girl," said Mike, "you're heartless." You know what? I'm going to put those in quotations. Sorry. Just editing my old manuscript from 2014 on the fly. Not that it matters. I mean, I guess eventually one day I could release a second edition of my book, updated on my Amazon page, just so it's actually readable, because this part, Jesus Christ. Without the formatting, it's just messed up, because I wrote this in another program that transferred. Anyway, let's focus. There was a shot from the stairs she had just been climbing. The creepy laugh she heard beside her told her all she needed to know. It was Jason. Being caught by surprise, she was immediately at a disadvantage. She could have tried to turn and fight, but she knew from experience that she would probably die in the process. Instead, Rachel ran. Running up another set of stairs, she took shot after shot as bullets filled the air around her. She was lucky enough to stumble upon a health orb when she saw the most beautiful sight. Andrew was right ahead of her and hadn't seen her yet. Jason's shots continued to be hit and miss, and some of those misses whistled right past Andrew's head. Rachel dived through a door just as she saw Andrew turn, and he passed her hiding spot to engage Jason in battle. Andrew was too good at shooting games for any of them to stand a chance against him. Jason went down before he could even put up a fight. Jason swore aloud, loud enough that the teacher could hear. Mr. Martin's eyes filled with irritation at yet another disruption. "Are you paying attention, Mr. Stride?" he asked. Jason looked up in surprise, unsure of how to respond. Yeah," he said at last. "Alice didn't hear the answer to my last question," Mr. Martin told him, pacing slowly around his desk, his arms crossed. "Could you help her?" Alice looked up in surprise from the computer in front of Rachel, her blue eyes looking around the room in confusion before stopping at Mr. Martin. "Are you serious?" Alice asked him. She clearly took offense to him even suggesting that she hadn't been paying attention. "I've got every word you've said since class started typed into a Word document, in screenplay format. Do you know how hard that is to do in Word?" Mr. Martin seemed to be trying really hard to ignore her. "Can you name 3 programs someone might use to develop a website?" Jason looked at his computer screen, trying hard as he could to think of something to say. Luckily for everyone, Andrew had him covered. Oh, this is more. He's writing into the chat. "Microsoft Front Page, Macromedia Dreamweaver, and Flash," said words across Jason's screen. Jason repeated Andrew's suggestions out loud as Mr. Martin watched frowning. "Give me 2 more," Martin told Jason, uncrossing his arms to rub sawdust from his calloused fingers. "Adobe Photoshop, Notepad," came more words onto the screen. Again, Jason repeated what Andrew typed in the chat. This time, Mr. Martin smiled again and leaned against his whiteboard. "I never said Notepad," said Mr. Martin, a look in his face threatening to be out for blood. Jason swallowed much too loudly under his gaze, but suddenly the teacher grinned. "But it was used by coders in the early days," he continued to say, "so I'll accept it." With the disaster averted, Rachel looked back to her screen to see the game had ended. Andrew had hit the kill limit. He was at the top of the leaderboard with Mike in second, Ian third, Bilal fourth, Jason fifth, and Rachel last. "Thanks for the save, Andrew," Jason typed. "NP," Andrew responded. Xbox just signed in as me. "Damn it, Andrew, why are you so unbeatable?" asked Ian. Lord, the formatting on all of this. It's all in the chat, by the way. What can I say? I am the one, Neo, the Highlander. I did like all this experimental formatting. I had the least deaths, said Rachel. "Deaths don't mean anything, though," said Andrew. "The game is a lot like real life," he continued. And then Ian just typed an exclamation mark. And then Andrew types, well, not the death doesn't mean anything part. Sorry, I'm trying to add quotations to all of this. It seems the easiest way to fix this because all my original formatting went away. So I'll just put it all in quotes and hopefully people will figure it out. And then Andrew continues, "But in the game, you can hide somewhere and wait for people to come for you, but you're not going to be as successful as a person who is proactive and goes looking for points." Mike leaned back in his chair, IRL. "So, what you're saying is that you need to be confident to succeed," he said. "You need to be a go-getter and put yourself out there." Andrew looked up from his computer and frowned. You can't continue in-game conversations in the real world, he said. I'm sorry, Mike said unconvincingly. Did I break some kind of geek law? No, Andrew told him, just makes my head hurt. The bell rang, and Mr. Martin turned around again. I'm sorry, let me just finish here, he told them. You might be a few minutes late for your next class. But it's drama, Alice protested in horror. Then you might be a few minutes late for drama, Martin corrected himself. This is the worst day of my life, Alice whispered to Tanya. Rachel had a love-hate relationship with drama class. On one hand, she hated having to do embarrassing things in front of so many of her peers. On the other hand, she loved watching other people do embarrassing things. It was both the most fun and most torturous part of her day. Though Ian didn't know, Rachel had been very close to choosing economics instead. Sometimes she wished she had. The start of Thursday's class was one of those times. Today, I'd like everyone to break into pairs and work on your improv, said their teacher, Mrs. Caldwick. There's no pressure. You don't need to perform anything yet. Just work towards thinking on your feet, and don't forget the exercises we practiced last class. Rachel hated improv exercises. She embarrassed herself enough throughout the day without being asked to do it on purpose. She also hated group assignments. All the popular kids always grouped with each other. Everyone seemed to have friends in the class but her. Even Andrew and Bilal had each other. More times than not, she was the odd girl out, just another way for her to be outcast. She didn't know what was worse, the amused smirk from Daisha and her friends, or the pitied look from the teacher and every other kid in the class. Why couldn't she just be allowed to do her own thing? Why did life always have to suck so much? As everyone broke off into their groups, Rachel retreated to the back corner of the class. Maybe if she stayed out of the way, the teacher wouldn't notice her and she could just continue with her drawing. They had their class in the theater. When plays weren't being put on, the chairs were all stored in a closet somewhere and the space was used for drama class. There were a few tables along the side of the room and it was under one of those that Rachel hid away from the rest of the class. She pulled out her notebook and started doodling. Rachel didn't hold much faith in words. They had failed her more times than she could count, but in drawing, she found she could really express herself. Today, that meant trying to sketch the girl she kept seeing in her dreams. She didn't know who Lily was, or why the woman kept invading her mind, and she wasn't much interested to find out. But she couldn't shake it. While most dreams Rachel ever had would quickly fade from her mind into obscurity, she could still vividly remember her dreams with Lily. It was almost as if she was remembering her dreams as actual waking memories, but that was just stupid. Rachel didn't believe in all that Joseph and the amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat stuff. Dreams didn't mean anything. They were simply the wanderings of her subconscious mind. She was so distracted by her thoughts and her art that she didn't immediately notice Tanya crawl under the table and sit beside her. She'd sort of just been hoping no one had noticed her escape from the group. In any case, Tanya wasn't exactly the person Rachel was expecting to come under after her. The school president wasn't the most suited for it either. Being rather tall meant she had to hunch just to fit. She didn't complain, or even say anything at all. To Rachel's surprise, she chose instead just to watch Rachel draw. Rachel finished the detail on Lily's nose, and then looked up just a little from the page to give Tanya a funny look out of the corner of her eye. Her eyelids narrowed, and her face must have looked funny because Tanya grinned at her before taking a bite from a Twizzler she pulled from her pocket. Rachel had never really been this close to Tanya before. The school president wasn't the hottest girl in school, but at least she wasn't trying to be. She had an accidental beauty to her, her brown hair untidily pulled behind her head in a ponytail, with more than a couple loose strands. Her fingernails were painted, though Rachel couldn't guess how long ago. Now the bright yellow was chipped at the edges. And her eyes, a dazzling blue, lingered out at Rachel from under cheap mascara and thick black eyeliner. What could the school president possibly want with her? The way Tanya was looking at her made her feel naked, and she could feel her face blush under scrutiny. Rachel knew from experience that when she blushed, her face got red. She could thank her dad's pale skin for that one. What was Tanya looking at? Why didn't she say something? Was Rachel supposed to talk first? Was it weird she hadn't said anything yet? Was that what Tanya was waiting for? Rachel decided to just go for it and ask, "How did you find me?" Tanya didn't answer, but instead asked a question of her own. "Do you want me to be your partner?" Rachel didn't know what to say. Well, she did. She wanted to tell Tanya to take her pity and eat it. Wanted to say she was perfectly happy under the table, drawing to herself. "What about your friends, Alice or Peter?" she asked instead. Tanya shrugged. "They're working with each other." "Okay," Rachel said, supposing that made sense. "You have more friends, Alex or everyone else in school?" Tanya didn't seem to know how to respond. They both looked at the floor, and Rachel immediately wished she'd just kept her mouth shut. I don't want to work with everyone else in the school," she told Rachel. "I want to work with you." "Why?" Again, Tanya didn't know how to answer. Likely she had expected Rachel to just say yes, and, in that world, they would have been doing exercises by now. Rachel wondered if she was the first person to ever really question Tanya. "You didn't have a partner," Tanya said at last. "I didn't have a partner. I thought we had something in common. What's the deal?" Now Rachel felt guilty. But that was Tanya's plan the whole time, wasn't it? "There's no deal," she said, shaking her head. "Then, you want to get out from under this table?" Tanya asked, "preferably before I need to make a trip to the chiropractor." Rachel peered out from under the desk. Andrew and Bilal seemed to be playing out a scene involving superheroes versus Jedi. That would be an awesome scene. Two groups of students had formed together, and they were playing tag in the middle of the room. Everyone else seemed to be having just as much fun, all except her, and now Tanya by proxy. Water break. Water break. Do 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 do. Water break. Do 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 do. Oh no, my mouth just went douchey. Alright, that's better. Ish. Much better. Alright. Where was I? Water break. That's not written here. If she had her way, Rachel wouldn't leave from under the table until the bell rang, or better yet, until it was time to go home. But the choice wasn't in her hands anymore, not while her hand was in Tanya's, and she was being dragged into the open. Rachel only felt slightly annoyed as she put her sketchbook away. Part of her was still very curious as to why Tanya was acting so weird. Normally, Tanya ignored people like Rachel, but now she was going out of her way to talk to her. There had to be a reason. "What now?" she asked Tanya. Tanya shrugged. "You want to do some improv?" she asked. Rachel looked to the floor as her bangs fell forward to cover her face. "Not really," she said almost more to herself. Tanya leaned against the table and crossed her arms. "Why not?" she asked. "I don't really like doing improv," Rachel admitted with a shrug. She had another thought she was going to keep to herself, but with Tanya watching her, Rachel suddenly felt she should say more. Or even really talking in front of people. Tanya reached out and grabbed Rachel's hand. "Do you have stage fright?" Rachel shook her head, her hair swaying with every move. "More like people fright," she explained. "That's not so irrational," Tanya told her. "Talking seems to come easy to you," Rachel said, nodding to Tanya. "I try so hard sometimes, but nothing I want to say ever seems good enough." "You care so much about saying the right thing that you end up saying nothing at all," Tanya said with a smile. "I think that's cool." "Maybe," Rachel said. She could feel her face turning red. "But it's not cool." Tanya did something quite unexpected and hugged Rachel. Rachel stiffened, but Tanya squeezed her tightly before releasing. Rachel watched Alice get on Peter's back and ride him around the theater. The two of them seemed to be having a lot of fun. Rachel wished she could have that much fun with someone. Just because she kept to herself didn't mean she didn't have all the same hormones as every other girl. She hated herself for wanting so bad to feel passion and excitement, but simultaneously pushing everyone away so that she could have neither. Her mind was just split between whether or not she liked drama class. Her mind wasn't just split between whether or not she liked Robin Pass. Her entire brain was at war, and the introvert side was constantly stronger. Consistently stronger. Both constantly and consistently stronger. So, are you going to come to my party tomorrow? Tanya asked. Rachel wanted to say no, but for some weird reason, the words that came out of her mouth were a lot closer to, I haven't decided yet. Having Tanya standing in front of her, Rachel suddenly felt a strong desire not to disappoint. ... Scene change. Rachel grabbed a banana from the fruit basket and dropped it on her tray beside her milkshake. Andrew and Bilal didn't go near the fruit basket, which wasn't any sort of surprise. Rachel wondered if people who ate meat had to specifically do it every day just to show that they could. After all, there didn't seem to be any real meat in the shepherd's pie, but still everyone puts them on their plate. What do you know about viral marketing? Andrew asked Bilal as Rachel moved to pay for her tray. Aha! Not as much as you're about to tell me, Bilal said. Andrew looked to Rachel, who could only shrug. Sounded like some kind of black market for bioweapons to her, but she didn't think it would be anything so awesome. Before the Dark Knight came out, explained Andrew as his eyes glazed over slightly from the mention of his favorite movie, there was a popular viral campaign run that involved rallies for a fake Harvey Dent election and a scavenger hunt for things in a ton of major cities. Rachel paid the woman behind the counter and moved to join Jason. He was eating a peanut butter sandwich from home. Jason didn't have the nicest family. Likely he'd asked for some money for lunch, and his parents had told him to starve. One thing was sure, he had made the sandwich himself. He always had to put together his own food and take care of himself. Andrew and Bilal joined them, and Andrew was still talking about viral campaigns. Eagle Eye did it too, Andrew continued. They would call your phone and give you clues, and you would get emails as if you were being followed or watched or something. It was a big alternate reality game that would eventually lead you to exclusive trailers and things for the movie. Bilal shrugged. Aha! Sounds like a lot of work for nothing, he admitted. There's a new one starting up, Andrew told Bilal, and the first round is a video game tournament. That got Bilal's attention. What kind of game? He asked slowly, careful not to get too excited. It's a shooter on Xbox. You in? Andrew asked him. No, Xbox, stop listening. Aha! Damn you, Bilal replied. He was in. Sounds like some sort of mission, Jason said. Every military op requires a title. Andrew nodded. Jason is right, he said. We should come up with a name, like Operation... Andrew looked around for something to name his mission. Finally he looked to his plate and said shepherd's pie. Rachel rolled her eyes and stopped paying attention to their geeky conversation. Instead, she looked around the cafeteria and noticed Daisha flirting with her new boyfriend of the week across the room. Rachel didn't recognize him, but he seemed to be a senior. He also likely had no idea what he'd gotten himself into. Rachel just didn't understand life. How come Daisha got everything she wanted when she was such a bitch? What happened to karma? Did it even exist? What guy would possibly want to go out with Daisha? How did Daisha even meet these people? Why couldn't Rachel ever meet someone cute willing to go out with her? Alice caught Rachel's eye and waved across the cafeteria at her. Rachel was pretty sure Alice had never once waved to her before. Rachel wasn't sure how to respond. Shrugging slightly, she turned her attention back to her friends. It was around that time that Ian finally joined them. His mom had bought him some Wendy's. He sat down between Rachel and Andrew and was about to say something when Andrew hit him hard in the chest. There's Holly, Andrew declared as if everyone at the table had wanted to know. He pointed across the room to the girl they'd met the other day behind the school. She was sitting alone by the window. Hey to you too, Ian mumbled grumpily as no one greeted him. Holly didn't seem to be doing so good. She was shoveling her food into her mouth so fast that there was no way she had time to chew. Her other hand was clenching the table so hard her knuckles were white. She seemed more pale than the last time they'd seen her, and her leg bounced impatiently. She looks really tired, Andrew admitted. Holly seemed to nod slightly to herself, and her hand clenched harder than ever. Did you see that? Ian said as he bit into his chicken nugget. That is a druggy bitch. What? Andrew said with a shock. Oh, sorry, Truggy Twitch, Ian explained after he swallowed. I swear to God it exists. I heard about it in a podcast. Jason nodded his agreement. Ian's right, dude. That chick is withdrawing from some sort of hard drug. Andrew watched her. She continued to stuff her mouth with food and glanced up impatiently to the clock. I don't believe you, Andrew insisted unconvincingly. Finally, Holly finished her shepherd's pie. She didn't even bother to clean up after herself. Grabbing her bag, she dashed for the door. A smoke was in her hand before she even got out of the cafeteria. Andrew watched the door close behind her, and then he turned to his friends. Should I go after her? No! Everyone else at the table said at once. English was her last class of the day. Her teacher, Mrs. Phelps, was the embodiment of the 60s hippie movement. Her classroom was dark, with the walls covered from top to bottom in artwork and posters of the Beatles. Paper chains hung down from the roof, and the desks were organized in two semicircles facing towards the board. The classroom was fairly empty when Rachel and her friends got there. They sat in the far corner of the semicircle and waited. The bell hadn't gone off yet, but they'd been really bored of just wandering around the school aimlessly. Andrew pulled out his laptop and was just starting it up when Mrs. Phelps came in. Hey, my students, she said with seemingly genuine excitement. I love my students. We're going to have such a fun time today. Mrs. Phelps always spoke with enthusiasm. She had a rough voice, rasp and sharp, but kind. She was well loved by her students, though more often than not she seemed to be stoned. She was probably in her 60s and was no taller than Rachel. I think I said elsewhere that she was definitely in her 60s. No, she was from the 60s hippie movement. Okay, yeah. So she was probably in her 60s and she was no taller than Rachel. Hey, Mrs. Phelps. Mrs. Phelps passed Andrew's desk and shut his laptop. You won't need that, she told him. Computers are too logical. Today we'll be looking beyond logic into the unknown. But how are we supposed to take notes? Asked Andrew. You don't need notes, said Mrs. Phelps. What would you need those ramblings for? In this class, everyone thinks for themselves. I don't just want to study stuff I say. I don't just want you to study stuff I say and repeat it back to me. How would you learn? Ian and Jason stared. God, I'm ruining everything here. Ian and Jason shared an amused glance. Isn't that what learning is? Ian asked sarcastically with a smirk. Ian, Phelps said, repeating his name 2 more times. Ian. You don't understand, but it's all right. You have a strong mind, I can tell. It just needs to be opened. Mrs. Phelps moved to try and organize her desk, a futile effort as it was overflowing with piles taller than her of books of random paper. Books and... Let me take a drink. Water break. Do-do-do-do-do. Water break. Do-do-do-do-do. Water break. Alright. Mrs. Phelps moved to try and reorganize her desk, a futile effort as it was overflowing with piles taller than her of books and random papers, while Ian broke into laughter behind her back. Rachel refused to laugh with him. She liked Mrs. Phelps. The bell rang as Tanya came in with her friends. They sat at the very middle of the semicircle. Alice caught Rachel's eye and gave her a slight smile. Rachel didn't know why, but that was the 3rd time since drama that Alice had smiled at her. It was almost as if Alice was flirting with her, but that would be preposterous. What are we exploring today, Mrs. Phelps? Asked Tanya. Tanya, you'll be glad you asked, Mrs. Phelps said. We'll be exploring the dark recesses of Gothicism. Ooh. Jason and Ian started snickering again, so maybe Mrs. Phelps was a little cheesy and different. She was also very nice and non-judgmental. Once all the desks were filled, Mrs. Phelps began. Gothicism is kind of the bee's knees right now. You know what those are, right? Mrs. Phelps lectured, snickering. It's in our architecture, in our clothing, and our entertainment. What do you guys think of? Guys and girls, I mean. What do you think of when you hear the word Gothic? Daisha raised her hand and said loudly, Twilight. Oh, Twilight? Oh my god. She would be a Twilight fan. Absolutely! Vampires are huge in Gothic culture, the teacher said dramatically. You see evil vampiric gargoyles on our churches. You have those weirdos at the beach. They're everywhere. They're taking over. Everyone laughed. Dracula is about as Gothic as you can get. But there's modern Gothic tales, too. Has anyone here read Anne Rice? A surprising number of people that weren't Daisha, Danny, and Ian raised their hands. She wasn't the creator of the Gothic genre, Mrs. Phelps said almost as a joke, and neither was Bram Stoker. She continued more seriously. The first Gothic novel ever written was The Castle of Otranto by Horace Walpole. And the first good graphic novel ever written is still Twilight, Daisha said, a big smile on her face. She was probably just showing off that she had actually read a book. Mrs. Phelps ignored her and continued on as if nothing had happened. The Gothic genre is more than just blood-sucking and stakes through the heart, she continued. It's not about vampires or even monsters. Sure, monsters are often used as symbolism, but a good Gothic novel delves into the darkness within us all. It explores beyond our comfort zone into who we all really are. Tanya raised her hand. What do you mean by who we really are? Tanya's question seemed to make Mrs. Phelps even more excited. Everyone has the potential to be both great and terrible at the same time, she explained. We all have the light and dark inside us. After all, we are just human, and humans are imperfect. Heaven and hell, good and evil, yin and yang, the two sides of any conflict come together like Captain Planet to create the human condition. All the rules and laws given to us by society try to make us into a moronic metal machine, but in the Gothic form, none of the outside matters. It's all inside, where our humanity lies. Rachel decided then and there that she would be the worst Gothic protagonist ever. That all sounded so exciting, and she lived the most uneventful life of anyone probably ever. In a way, she felt like another casualty of suburban life. Across from her, she watched Tanya play mindlessly with her hair. Behind her, Alex was watching her finger slowly twirl between each strand, her gaze equally mindless. Tanya was wanted by every guy in the room, and she didn't even have to try. Why couldn't Rachel? Was it because she was too scared to let her humanity show? Or was it because she rarely ever went anywhere or did anything? Like Tanya's party. Rachel went straight home after class. She had only an hour to both change and be at the coffee shop for her shift. Her head was exploding in thought. She'd never put much thought into her life before. Instead, she just took things as they came, and never realized until just then exactly how much she hated herself. She suddenly wanted to take risks, and have some fun. As she took off her shoes and made for the stairs, she passed Jacob playing a game on the TV in the living room. "Hey," she greeted him. He didn't look away from the screen, but grunted in reply. Ugh. He was fighting Zeus, and it was obviously not the easiest fight. Rachel knew she should be getting changed, but she had time, and her brother was fighting one hell of an epic battle. "Suck it, Zeus," he said as he struck a finishing blow. "Man, Zeus is a pussy. If Zeus and Raiden got in a fight, Raiden would easily kick his ass." "Christopher Lambert's Raiden?" asked Rachel in reference to the movie Mortal Kombat. Jacob shrugged. "I was thinking more of the video game Raiden, but yeah, the Raiden from Annihilation wouldn't stand a chance." Liam Neeson played Zeus in Clash of the Titans," Rachel reminded him. So, what if it was Liam Neeson's Zeus fighting Christopher Lambert's Raiden? Jacob pulled out his Nintendo DS to check on his little animal town while the credits rolled on their TV. So you're saying Qui-Gon Jinn versus the Highlander? He said, distracted. Best fight ever. Rachel gave him a quick smile before continuing past the living room. Jacob would be stuck in thought, likely long after she returned from her shift. She also passed her dad's study. He was hard at work inside, working on his next flop of a novel. She wasn't sure why, but she suddenly really wanted to have a father-daughter conversation. She hadn't had one of those in years. What was happening to her? Hey, Dad, she greeted him. He inhaled wrong, or something, and broke into a cough. Holy shit! Oh, don't sneak up on me like that, he exclaimed once he could breathe again. Yeah, Rachel said sarcastically. I'm a ninja. Did you want something? He asked. Rachel didn't know what to say. She wasn't even sure she wanted to talk about anything. She just knew she wanted to talk about something. Did that even make sense? It didn't matter. Her mind was in an infinite loop over one topic, and that topic was doomed to come out sooner or later. There's a party on Friday, she said at last. Oh, said her dad as he dropped his pen in surprise. Well, that's great. Excellent, in fact. Where is it? He seemed almost eager. Rachel didn't expect his reaction to be so positive. Toronto, she told him. The president of our student council is organizing it. Huh, he said with a stroke of his chin. Will there be drinking? Rachel shrugged. It's at a bar, she told him honestly. Huh, he said again. Will you be drinking? I wasn't planning to go, Rachel admitted. Her dad picked up his pen. He seemed slightly disappointed. If you change your mind, he told her, just let me know. You wouldn't be mad? She asked. Her dad turned to her with surprise at her question. Why would I be mad? He asked. Rachel, you're a very responsible 16-year-old girl. I can't shelter you forever. A parent has to know when to let their kid figure things out on their own. If you want to go to a party, that's great. There's more to life than these four walls. I know, she told him, realizing that he was saying all the same things suddenly flashing through her head. How long could she spend her time here playing video games and watching Glee when everyone else was living life in the real world? By the way, this was written in 2014. Finished writing in 2014. All I'm saying is, I don't want you to feel like I'm holding you back, he told her slowly. You can come to me for anything, and I promise I won't judge you. Admittedly, Rachel had never worried about her dad judging her, but she didn't tell him that. If you ever find yourself making a horrible mistake, if you ever need help, promise me you won't be afraid to call. I'm always here for you, even at 4 a.m, even if I need to drive to Toronto and pull you from a dumpster filled with your puke. Rachel screwed up her face in disgust. Ew, Dad, she exclaimed with a giggle. Ew, Dad. I don't drink. Seriously. Her dad turned back to his writing and muttered, I'm proud of you, hon. Rachel looked over his shoulder at his new project. It was about a polar bear who had to unite the Arctic tribes of bears to fight against the humans. Despite how it sounded, however, it wasn't a children's book. You misspelt constipation wrong, she pointed out to him. He looked at where she was pointing. No, that's supposed to be correlation, as in Pete the polar bear and meteorology. No, that's supposed to be correlation, as in Pete the polar bear and meteorological expert of the Wigan tribes found no direct correlations between weather patterns over the last 20 years and the arrival of the humans to their lands, he explained. Well, then you spelt it very wrong, she told him. Rachel could only assume that Pete the polar bear was the main character, with the dream of uniting bears and humans before Bloodshed gets a chance to end his dreams forever. Also, Wigan is Ender's last name from Ender's Game, the book you have been... Bleh. Also, Wiggins is Ender's last name from Ender's Game, the book you have been staring at. The book you have staring at you right there on your bookshelf. That was a tongue-twisty sentence to get through, sorry. He looked up in surprise, obviously not even realizing he'd stolen the name. Noticing the time out of the corner of her eye, Rachel left the study and made for her room. She was changing. She could feel it in every part of her life. Things that used to mean so much to her were meaningless now. She was bored with living the same life every day. She wanted excitement, and she never wanted excitement before. Was this just a sign she was growing up? She'd also made up her mind about Friday. She was going to go to the party. So what if some crazy people in a dream told her not to? Rachel wasn't religious, and despite her raging imagination, she knew magic wasn't real. That meant dreams couldn't be either. There was no way in hell she was going to let a dream tell her what to do. ... Scene change, boo, boo. It was Mike who picked Rachel up from her house after she finished dinner Friday night. She had tried to convince Ian to come with her, but he refused. He was a lot like her in that he wasn't the most social person in school. By the time she was leaving home for the GO station, the sun had already set, and Rachel was beginning to think Ian had the right idea. Mike was the only one in their circle who had a car. After picking her up, they also stopped by Jason's house to bring him along. Rachel didn't know too much about his home life, but it was fairly common knowledge that Jason hadn't grown up with the world's nicest parents. Still, it came as a surprise to find him arguing with his mother in the driveway. All I wanted was 2 slices of bread and some peanut butter," Jason yelled angrily. He had a sandwich in his hand, which he thrusted at his mom as if it were a weapon. Oh shit. I forgot that my I forgot that my Wi-Fi was turned off. Hopefully I can turn on my Wi-Fi without completely... Shit, I just used up all my bandwidth. All my bandwidth just went bye-bye. Alright. Did it stop the thing? Is everything still good? Sorry about that. That was a terrible error on my part. I just used up all my bandwidth streaming this on Twitch. God damn it. 42 minutes so far. Alright, where are we at? Alright. Mike wasn't the only one in their circle. Mike was the only one in their circle who had a car. After picking her up, they also stopped by Jason's house to bring him along. Rachel didn't know too much about his home life, but it was fairly common knowledge that Jason hadn't grown up with the world's nicest parents. Still, it came as a surprise to find him arguing with his mother in the driveway. All I wanted was 2 slices of bread and some peanut butter, Jason yelled angrily. He had a sandwich in his hand, which he thrusted at his mom as if it were a weapon. Jason's mom, a skinny and very stern-looking older woman, slapped the sandwich from his hand. You didn't pay for the bread, she lectured him in her high-pitched whine, or the peanut butter, and don't get me started on the jelly. Oh, I know better than to touch your jelly, Ma, Jason argued back. I still have the bruise from last time. Jason's mom jabbed a finger into his chest and said, You want to eat in our house? You have to provide your share of the groceries. Your father doesn't break his back every week just to give you a free ride. It was obvious to Rachel that Jason was close to exploding with anger. Rachel started to worry that if things escalated any more, Jason would hit his mother. Then what would they do? Instead, Jason turned towards the car. Under his breath, Jason muttered, Normal parents have no problem taking care of their kids. Jason's mom heard his remark and turned him roughly by his shoulder. You want to be provided with food and clothing? She asked him. You can join the military. Jason shoved his mother's hand away. 2 more years, he told her threateningly, raising his middle fingers to make a point. 2 more years. With that, he opened the door behind Rachel and got into the back seat. The car was a nice black Mitsubishi. It was actually Mike's brother's car, but Mike was allowed to drive it pretty much any time. The inside had nice leather seats, and it had been kept in near mint condition to the point that it still had that new car smell. As Mike pulled out of the driveway, Jason leaned forward. Sorry about that, he apologized to them. You mind if we stop somewhere to eat? Sure thing, bud. No, I can't give them all southern. Why does everybody have a southern accent? Sure thing, bud, Mike said to Jason as he checked his blind spots and made a turn. Rachel didn't know what to say. Admittedly, she never hung out with Mike, and not Ian before. Their social circle was a messy one. Andrew and Bilal were at the center. Bilal was friends with Jason and Mike, while Andrew was friends with Ian. They'd all ended up being friends with each other, but Rachel still didn't feel as comfortable around the less geeky members of their circle. She'd promised herself that she'd try to be more social this time. After all, Mrs. Phelps had made that speech on showing your inner self. Rachel could only remain sheltered for so long, and with that in mind she tried to make some small talk. "Sucks about your parents," she said quietly to Jason. Jason sighed, and Rachel was sure she caught Mike throw her a glance. "I'd rather not talk about it," Jason admitted, without saying another word. He turned to the window and fell silent. Yet again, Rachel had failed at the social game. Rachel wasn't about to join Jason in watching the landscape go by. Rachel was about to... Man. That really matters, whether it's positive or negative. Rachel was about to join Jason in watching the landscape go by when Mike tried to change the subject. "Hey, so, what made you decide to come?" Mike asked. He threw her another look. "We've invited you places before." "I don't know," Rachel admitted. "I just wanted to try something different." "Well, you're always welcome to hang," Mike told her with a smile. "Any friend of Bilal's is a friend of mine." Jason joined in the conversation. "Oh yeah," he said deeply. "Bilal doesn't go out much either." "It's a lifestyle choice," Mike said. "Andrew and Ian are shut-ins too. You can't live your whole life behind a computer screen, you know. There's so much to experience out there." He stopped at a stoplight and looked her square in the eyes. "You're finally leaving your shell," he continued, "and it's sick. You're about to experience a whole new world filled with sex, drugs, and rock and roll. It's going to be a blast." "I hope so," Rachel said quietly. She wasn't so sure. She had a bad feeling she wasn't going to have much fun. Like she never should have agreed to come in the first place. "That's the wrong attitude," Mike said with a nudge to her shoulder. "Repeat after me. I will have fun tonight." He watched her and waited, but she only stared back. Nothing she said to him could possibly change her enjoyment of the evening. That would just be stupid. But the light turned green, and still Mike just watched her. The car behind them blared its horn. "You should probably go," Rachel tried to say, but Jason interrupted her. Whoops. There. "Say it, soldier," he said like a drill sergeant. "I will have fun tonight." Rachel sighed and rolled her eyes. "I will have fun tonight," she said under her breath. "Not like that," yelled Jason. "Come on," said Mike, his voice rising. "Say it like you mean it." He slammed his fist on the dashboard. "Be the change, come on," he laughed. "Do it!" Sorry, that's not in the... Anyway, just do it. Yesterday you said today. Today you say tomorrow. Just do it. Oh no. Oh dear. I definitely use all my bandwidth. God damn it. Fuck. It switched to the Wi-Fi, but damn. It even texted me too late. Shit. Alright, anyway. We're gonna keep going. "Be the change. Come on," he laughed. I will have fun tonight," yelled Jason. "I will have fun tonight," yelled Mike even louder as he lowered the windows. "I will have fun tonight," Rachel said as she felt her excitement rising. Yell it for everyone to hear," said Mike. "We're going downtown to fracking party!" Rachel yelled at the top of her lungs, though still not as loudly as Mike or Jason, or even, she could only imagine, a school of deaf kids. Still, her heart was pounding in her chest and ringing in her ears. Mike was right. Tonight was a night to let her inhibitions go and party. Jason cheered, and Mike drummed excitedly on the steering wheel. "Are you waiting for a particular shade of green, asshole?" came a yell from behind. With a laugh, Mike started the car forward, and they were on their way once more. They arrived at the GO station, and Mike parked his car. Before Rachel knew it, they'd paid for their tickets and joined a classmate of theirs on the platform. "Gordon," Mike said to his dark-skinned friend. Gordon recognized that Mike was talking to him and pulled his headphones from his ears. "Johns," he said, Mike's last name in greeting. "Gordon," Jason greeted with a nod. "Stride," Gordon replied with a return nod. Gordon was quite an intimidating person to look at. He was tall and muscular with a shaved head and a dark hood. He spoke like a gangsta, but Rachel knew better than to judge a book by its cover. She'd heard from the infamous rumor mill that he was one of the smartest kids in the school. He had straight A's and was in every advanced class. Rachel saw Gordon turn his attention to her and froze up. She'd never really ever talked to him before, and for the life of her, she couldn't think of what to say. "Hey, Gordon," she said at last. He didn't say anything for a second as his face tightened in an attempt to remember her name. "Random hobbit chick," he said, finally giving up. Rachel wasn't sure if she'd heard him right. "I'm a hobbit?" she asked quietly. She didn't think she looked like a hobbit. She was wearing a pair of black jeans. Oh, thank God, that's not. Of black jeans with a red top and hat and gloves. She was glad she brought the latter, as it had gotten quite cold on the platform. "Do I need to introduce you to? Gordon, meet Rachel. Rachel, meet Gordon." Gordon snapped his fingers. "Rachel, right. I knew it'd be something like that." Rachel nodded and forced a smile. The wind picked up, and she wrapped her arms around herself for warmth. The air was cold and damp, and she hated every second she had to stand in it. The platform was fairly crowded with people, and Rachel couldn't see over them. Wanting to see the train come in, she stood between a few people and stepped across the safety line and leaned over the edge. Fog sat heavy in the air, so much so that you couldn't see more than 10 meters of track in either direction. It made her uneasy. "Water break, do-do-do-do-do, water break." Still kicking myself for forgetting to turn on the Wi-Fi for my tablet. That sucks. That's gonna cost me at least $20 extra apparently on my phone bill. Alright, anyway. Water break, do-do-do-do-do, water break. Alright, back to the book. She'd had another dream last night. This one wasn't even at a bus stop. It was in a tavern during, like, the 1800s. All the same girls were there. A long line of them, some British or Spanish, some even Asian, all seemingly ripped from time. She couldn't ignore them, even when she was awake. She found herself sketching their faces in her notepad, and she couldn't stop thinking about the warning. "Don't go to Toronto." The iconic green GO train noisily pulled up to the station. As it came to a complete stop, they got on board and found a section to themselves between the first and second floor. Jason sat by the window, and Rachel sat down beside him. Mike dropped into the seat across from her, and Gordon took 4 seats to himself, where he began to spread out textbooks and homework. Rachel heard the doors close downstairs, and the train jolted into motion. Jason continued to quietly watch the scenery pass in the window, even as Mike watched Gordon's pencil scribble away. "Hey, Gordon." "What's up, James?" Gordon asked without looking up. "You even doing math there?" asked Mike. Sure enough, Gordon was going through his math homework so fast it didn't seem possible that any human being could think at that speed. "Hell no," Gordon replied. "I'm just writing down bullshit. I don't have time to figure this shit out right now. Not like it matters. In the advanced class, they only check for completion." Mike sat back and whistled. "Damn, I wish I was in the advanced class," he said. Rachel didn't. She had enough troubles with math as it was. She was dreading their start on algebra next week. "You'd never get in," said Gordon. "Only white boy in the class is Ian. All the rest of them losers be Asian. It's like Hong Kong in there." "Is it true you used to live there?" Rachel asked. She'd heard rumors, but never really believed them. "Yeah," he said, leaning back in his seat. "My first memory was looking out our apartment window and seeing all them lights. Had no freaking clue what I was looking at," he chuckled. I can barely remember my first memory," Jason said. "I just remembered like a crib, and there's the sound of a TV in the other room." My first memory, Mike said excitedly, is of my brother smoking a joint. I keep going southern. My first I can't go too deep because that's Gordon. I can't go too southern because that's Jason. My first memory, Mike said excitedly, is of my brother smoking a joint. I kid you not. And his friends is asking, and I'm gonna tell. I was freaking 3. What? Let me reread that. My first memory, Mike said excitedly, is of my brother smoking a joint. I kid you not. And his friend is asking if I'm gonna tell. I was freaking 3. You were 3? Rachel asked. Yeah, why? I don't know, she said. The earliest I can remember is when I was 7. I was back in Mississauga riding my bike down our street. Everyone looked at her as if waiting for the punchline. That's it? Gordon asked. 7's pretty late, girl. She was pretty sure she'd been 7. It had been just before she'd gotten really sick. She would have been bedridden for nearly a month after. Hard to forget something like that. You guys hear about Andrew's parents? Jason said, leaving him home alone for a few days, going off to California for some convention. Oh, sick, Mike said with a laugh. We gotta get some bad parties going on in there. Gordon laughed loud and deep. Haha, I've heard of Andrew's legendary parties, he said sarcastically, his Lord of the Rings marathons. Come on, guys, Mike said, pretending to be Andrew. We're gonna watch 15 hours straight with extended footage. Rachel crossed her arms. Hey, I like Lord of the Rings, she told them. Of course, Gordon said as if it were obvious. You're a hobbit. What's not to love? Jason admitted. Or elephants stepping on people. Remember those ring wraiths? Mike continued, and when they started flying crazy bird things? And the Balrog? Finished Jason. He looked out at the tunnel they were passing through, then looked back to Mike. I kinda wanna watch the movie right now. I know, said Mike with frustration. I'm trying not to think about it. Think about the party instead. This party is going to be absane. Mike explained. Absurd and insane, all at once. Absane, Rachel repeated. Yeah, said Gordon as he clapped his hands. When I get there, first thing I'm going to do is bust some moves with Tanya Dayton. That girl is fine. Scene change. Boo, boo, scene change. Boo, boo. Maybe I'll get a couple drinks first, Gordon yelled timidly as they entered the bar. Rachel could barely hear him over the unfathomably loud music. The party wasn't quite what Rachel was expecting. The lights were so dim, her eyes had trouble adjusting. But from what she could see, she determined that the club was quite large. The drinks were being served on one side, and a dance floor was on the other side, packed with people grinding in ways that would make Marilyn Monroe blush. There were tables along the side and back for people to sit, but all of them were taken. In fact, the club was so packed they could hardly move. She tried to follow Gordon's wake through the crowd, but she was cut off by a large woman and her entourage. Rachel thought she heard her name being called from behind, and turned in time to see Tanya slide up next to her. You want to come out with me for a smoke? Tanya screamed in her ear. You want to come out with me for a smoke? Yeah, she screamed back, thankful for any excuse to get away from all the noise. They left through the same door she came in, and Tanya flashed what must have been her fake ID. Rachel scratched the stamp on her hand awkwardly. She had been given it when she entered to show how she was underage. Tanya lit a smoke and took a deep breath. They could still hear the music from inside, but it was duller outside and mixed with the loud sounds of the city. Water break, do-do-do-do-do. Water break, do-do-do-do-do. Water break. Alright. Yes, the music is duller outside and mixed with the loud sounds of the city. I didn't know you smoked, Rachel commented as nonchalantly as she could. I've been drinking, too, Tanya said with a sloppy smile. What are you, my mom? She seemed to be swaying, even just a little, though the smoke seemed to be steadying her. Rachel smiled, unsure how to respond. Yes? She joked quietly. Rachel laughed to herself. Ha ha ha. It's good to just feel like a normal girl, Tanya said as she took another drag. You know? Rachel wasn't sure she understood at all. Normal girls her age didn't drink or smoke. She stayed silent, though. Tanya never used to talk to her, and she didn't want to ruin things now. My parents wanted me to be... Oh, that was Rachel's voice. My parents wanted me to be like the next freaking prime minister, Tanya continued on. They sent me to this mock UN thing over the summer. Mock UN thing? Rachel asked. Tanya nodded. I represented Canada in front of like thousands of people, she explained. Rachel still didn't really get it. Just you? She asked. No, Tanya told her. Kids from like every country. We were all delegates. That's crazy, Rachel said. It wasn't so great, Tanya said with a shrug. We didn't even do anything. Debated stuff. I don't even think anyone was really listening. She took a drag from her smoke and added, So really, we were exactly like the UN. Rachel laughed. Sounds like fun, she said. You think? Rachel shook her head. I'd have peed myself in front of that many people, she admitted, her stomach clenching at even the thought of 1,000 people looking at her. I don't care much for politics, Tanya told Rachel, but I live to perform. Presenting in front of that many people was the only reason I went. Tanya tossed her cigarette and changed the subject with a smile. When I saw those cat ears, I knew it had to be you, she said. I think you look so cute in that hat. Rachel could feel herself blush, but was powerless to stop. I'm glad you made it, Tanya continued. Us crazies gotta stick together, you know? Rachel couldn't believe what she was hearing. Tanya really seemed to be warming to her, but what did she mean by us crazies? You're not really like other girls, she told Rachel. She was about to continue when suddenly she had to stop and try to remember what she was going to say. You actually listen. I often feel like everyone else just laughs on cue. And then Tanya did something Rachel never would have expected. She hugged her. I think that's the second time. I don't think she expected it the last time either. Tanya led Rachel back inside. They squeezed through the crowd until they found a spot nearby the bar. Stopping, Tanya turned around and leaned in close. I'm going back on the dance floor, Tanya yelled into her ear. You want to come? Rachel shook her head. Tanya shrugged and disappeared into the crowd. Rachel was alone again. Even God would have had trouble finding Mike and Jason in that crowd. There was no way Rachel was ready to grind with... Exact one thing I have to edit them. Sorry. What was I doing? Rachel shook her head. Tanya tried to disappear into the crowd. Rachel was alone again. Even God would have had trouble... Well, what the hell was that? My mind wandered for a second. There was no way Rachel was ready to grind with strangers on the dance floor. She had to take baby... Man, I don't know what the heck... This is what happens when you work nights. And it's midnight. Alright. Blah. Water break. Do-do-do-do-do. Tanya is going to the dance floor. Rachel's shaking her head. She doesn't want to go. Rachel's alone again. Even God would have had trouble finding Mike and Jason in that crowd. There was no way Rachel was ready to grind with strangers on a dance floor. She had to take baby steps, and she'd already taken enough of those that night to last a lifetime. Rachel squeezed up to the bar and signaled the bartender. What'll it be? He asked her swiftly. Rachel waved her hand casually for him to see her stamp, and he smiled knowingly. Coke, then? He asked. She nodded. Suddenly all the lights in the bar went lower than ever, until it seemed like they were all bathed in complete darkness, and the familiar tune of Lady Gaga's Bad Romance began to blare. As the music picked up, the lighting rose. Colored lights swung around the room to the tune of the music, and everyone cheered. Rachel had to admit that the bar did a good job with the theatrics. That was when she saw him. He was on the other side of the dance floor. There were probably 1 million people between them, and yet still his eyes pierced through hers. It was impossible for him to have noticed her across that dance floor, but he did. Let's try not to get hit with, licensing fees or anything, but yeah, that's the basic sound. You all know the song. Anyway, Rachel didn't understand it. There wasn't anything unusual about him. He was old, maybe in his 40s or 50s. He was tall with broad shoulders and a hint of gray hair that matched the color of his eyes. Something about him was different, though, and Rachel wasn't sure it was in a good way. The lights flashed to the music, and he was gone. No, Xbox, go to TV. It was like, you want me to play music? I'm like, no. It was just, the lights flashed to the music, and he was gone. It was just grinding bodies, flashing lights, and unbearable noise. Suddenly it was as if Rachel blinked, for he was beside her, standing there as if he'd been there the whole time. May I buy you a drink? No, that's not his voice. May I buy you a drink? May I buy you a drink? He asked. I believe that is the custom here, when a gentleman catches the eye of a lady. Don't bother, she told him as she waved her hand and showed him her stamp. It was just a Coke, after all. Please, he said, looking deep into her eyes. Let me buy this one. It would be my pleasure, alcohol or no. Rachel gave up arguing. Sure, he was sort of creepy, but what did she have to lose? Go ahead, she said. His eyes were still locked on hers. You can trust me, he said. You know that. There was no doubt or hint of question in his voice. He used confidence with every word. She did feel like he was someone she could trust. She couldn't explain it, just like a gut reaction. There was something familiar about him. It was like he had sort of an aura to him, a kind of bubble that made everyone around him seem small, and there was something else to him, a darkness and power. He handed her the Coke and paid the bartender. Tell me something, he said. What's a young girl like you doing here with all these grown-ups? I don't know, Rachel said. She was trying to look away, but something about his eyes wouldn't let her go. Come on, he said. It is quite rude to keep secrets, don't you think? I'm trying to prove my dream false, she told him. My dream told me not to come to Toronto, or something bad would happen.